Have you ever been that person in the room? The one where everyone is just screaming at the TV, they are completely losing their minds over a game, and you're just not feeling it at all? Well, you are definitely not alone. And it turns out the reason might have way more to do with your brain than your personality. Okay, let's get into it. So here's the big idea we're digging into. The line between a diehard fan and someone who couldn't care less, it's not just a lack of passion. It goes so much deeper than that. We're talking about neuroscience, about brain chemistry, and really how you're fundamentally wired. And look, this isn't some tiny fringe group we're talking about. About 60% of Americans follow sports, sure, but that means a full 40% don't. That is a massive number of people. So if you're in that second group, you're part of a huge population, even if it feels like you're the only one in the room not watching the game. So that's the real mystery, right? What's actually happening on a neurological level that makes one person paint their face team colors and another person just change the channel? Let's get into the science of it. Okay, our first stop is one of the most powerful forces in all of human history, tribalism. It is an ancient instinct that, as it turns out, sports have gotten really good at tapping into. I mean, think about it. For thousands and thousands of years, belonging to a tribe literally meant survival. It meant protection, it meant food, it meant identity. So even though we live in the modern world, that deep, deep need to belong to a clan is still there. And it often gets channeled directly into rooting for a sports team. And you can actually see this difference in our hormones. When a fan watches their team, their brain releases oxytocin, that's the bonding hormone. It's the same chemical that strengthens bonds between parents and children. It literally makes them feel like these athletes are part of their family, their clan. But people who don't care about sports, they tend to have lower tribal instincts. Their identity isn't as wrapped up in a group, so they have much less of that us versus them thinking. They don't just automatically hate the other team. But it's not just about belonging. Oh no, it's also about the incredibly powerful chemistry of reward happening inside your skull. This part is just wild. When scientists put people in fMRI scanners, they found that watching a competitive game lights up the exact same reward centers in the brain as things like gambling. It's all about the thrill of not knowing what's going to happen next. And this creates this incredibly potent cycle. The fact that the outcome is uncertain creates anticipation, which fires off a hit of dopamine, that feel-good chemical. But here's the kicker. Because you never know when the reward is coming, a big play, a score, a win, it creates something called intermittent reinforcement. And that is the single most addictive reward schedule known to psychology. It's the exact same principle that gets people hooked on slot machines. Now, for non-fans, this whole dopamine system, it just doesn't get triggered by watching other people compete. Their brains don't get that same chemical rush from it. And get this, some research suggests this could actually be genetic. Yeah, tiny variations in your dopamine receptor genes might predict how much you care about watching sports. Your indifference could literally be written in your DNA. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit, away from pure brain chemistry to something a bit more personal, how a team's performance can get tangled up with our own sense of who we are. So psychologists have this great term for it. They call it basking in reflected glory, or burging for short. It's that feeling when you get a personal confidence boost, a little jolt to your self-esteem, just because a group you identify with did something great. And this quote just nails it, right? Pay attention to how people talk after a game. When their team wins, it's always, we won. But when they lose, suddenly it's, they lost. It's this subtle, subconscious way we attach ourselves to victory and push failure away. But on the flip side, non-fans tend to have a more stable sense of self. Their self-esteem isn't on this wild roller coaster ride based on the outcome of a game that's completely out of their control, played by people they've never met. It's rooted more in things they actually have a hand in their own lives. Which brings us to a really interesting idea. Think about empathy. Think about your ability to care as a kind of budget. It's not infinite. We all have a limited amount of emotional energy to spend. The real question is, where do we choose to invest it? For a dedicated sports fan, a really significant slice of that empathy pie goes to their team. They're practicing caring deeply about the struggles, the injuries, and the triumphs of these players, even though they're complete strangers. Now, a non-fan isn't less empathetic. Not at all. Their empathy chart just looks different. That same emotional energy is simply redirected. They often invest that empathy budget in things like art and culture, social causes, their own creative projects, or their personal relationships. And all of this builds to a final, really crucial point. When you strip it all away, this is about two fundamentally different ways that people search for a compelling story, for meaning in their lives. On one side, you've got something called parasocial investment. It's a fancy term for that one-sided emotional connection we feel with public figures we don't know, like celebrities or an entire sports team. It's about finding meaning in a dramatic external story. And on the other side, there's direct engagement. This is where you find meaning in relationships that go both ways, and in stories where you are an active participant, not just sitting on the sidelines watching. And this is really what it boils down to. For one person, the most epic story imaginable is watching an underdog team fight its way to a championship. For another person, that exact same feeling of awe and narrative power comes from getting lost in a novel, or from the slow, beautiful evolution of a friendship, or the thrill of a scientific discovery. So let's just bring it all together. If you've ever felt like the odd one out because you don't care about sports, it's not some kind of character flaw. Your brain's reward system is just calibrated differently. Your innate tribal instincts are probably a little quieter. Your limited budget for empathy is just spent elsewhere. And you might just prefer being the main character in your own story instead of being a fan of someone else's. And that leaves us with one last thought. Neither of these approaches is better or worse. They're just different strategies for finding meaning and excitement in life. So it's not about what's wrong with you for not watching. The real question is, what's the game that you find truly worth playing?